and welcome to Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. We are your hosts,
Gustavo,
Ivan,
and Walter, and today we are going to talk about natural family planning. But first, a word from our sponsor. CMF Curo is a Catholic healthcare ministry that provides families nationwide with a better solution centered around the whole health, spirit, mind, and body. CMF Curo partners with one of the nation's leading health-sharing ministries so that its members can share their medical burdens in community. At CMF Curo, members also invest in their whole health with access to a spiritual director, concierge services, and health and spiritual resources. Find out if CMF Curo is a better solution for your family. Visit mycatholichealthcare.com to learn more about CMF Curo. That's mycatholichealthcare.com. Hello. Thank you for listening, for tuning in. This is the Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmidt. Just kidding.
I know we sound different, but
he sounds different. He sounds like three people. But anyways, no, Barbatus Catholic Podcast. Thank you for. Is it the first time that you are listening in? This is what I was thinking, that we never welcome new listeners. You know, don't be afraid. I guess we're doing our best to share some good ideas with you. Today is probably not the exception to that rule. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, you'll be the judge of that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Let us know.
But I really want to address something that I thought it was genius. For those who are listening and know, Ivan and Nayeli, my comadre, they're expecting baby number 3.
Yep.
There's a lot of mystery around this baby.
Everybody wants to know what we're having.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody.
Yeah. A baby.
Exactly. We're having a baby. But everybody swears that we know. They're like, you guys know, you just don't want to tell us.
Well,
we honestly don't know.
Ivan and Nayeli have 2 beautiful girls. And by statistics, baby number 3, I want to say that it is a boy. Like, I'm going to go on record and say
I need those positive vibes, guys.
I need those Gustavo, what
I'm saying it's a boy as well.
We should probably do that. Ivan sent us a link for a baby poll for this website called Baby Bookie.
Baby Bookie.
What do we tell us
They're again. Not a sponsor, by the way.
They're not sponsored.
I know, right?
What do we need to guess?
So we have friends who did this when they had their second baby. And so it's like this poll that you send out to people, family members, friends, all that. And you get to guess the sex of the baby, the date it'll be born, what time, how much the baby's going to weigh, the height, all that. So it's we send it out to a lot of people. Yeah. I send it out to Gustavo and Walter, and my wife is able to track it on this app. So she knows who voted. And I think boy is winning.
Nice.
Yeah.
Is there money on the line?
No.
We get the winner gets to baptize the baby. That's what I heard. That's what it said in the footnote.
Es el padrino el que gane. That's the top prize.
That would be funny.
If my abuelita taught me anything, by looking at a belly, you can tell. Supposedly.
Mira, that's such a
Lo trae muy arriba, lo trae muy abajo. Es niño, es niña. Que si trae agruras. If the mom has heartburn, baby has a lot of hair and stuff like that.
Deanna never had heartburn, and all of our children came out with a full head of hair on them. So I don't know. And then one of Deanna's aunt was always quote unquote guessing the sex of the baby, but she missed the first few times, and it's like, all right, sit down, Tia. You're not good at this. I hope she's not listening.
Full disclosure, I have 2 girls, and I really, really love girls.
Yeah.
So if we have another girl, I'm gonna be so happy.
Oh yeah,
but obviously. I'm not gonna lie. To have a boy, that would be pretty sick. The Dodgers need a future third baseman.
Yeah,
and
there you
go. It'll be my boy.
That's funny. And Garcia is a cool.
It's a good baseball name.
Baseball name, especially for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
We'll see where it goes.
All right. So today we are talking about babies or baby making, kind of.
There you go.
Baby making. Takes two to tango. Okay, so
you're gonna explain to people how to make babies.
No.
Take it away, Walter.
Take it away. So when a mommy and a daddy really love each other. So I guess the disclaimer of this episode is you have tender ears in the room. This might be one that you might want to put your headphones on for. Today we are going to take a stab at trying to talk about natural family planning.
Or NFP, as it's commonly known.
And why? Because a few weeks ago, I noticed that it was Natural Family Planning Awareness Week. And obviously, we're late to the punch because we're all busy because we're dads. Mm-hmm. But still, I thought, and I pitched this idea to Gustavo and Ivan, that it would be good to have a men's view of natural family planning. So we'll see. You let us know if this was a good idea or not. We'll find out. It's like 20 downloads of this episode. Who knows? Maybe this is one of the most popular episodes that we'll have. All right. So by definition, what it is, natural family planning, it is a natural method of fertility management that teaches the couple to recognize the body's natural signs of fertility. So far, so good?
Yep.
Okay. And there are several methods that you can practice NFP. So just the ones that are a little bit more popular would be the sympto-thermal method, which basically takes note of the body temperature of the woman and signs of fertility like mucus, which we'll put a pin on that and then we'll talk about it in a minute. Family of the Americas Ovulation Method, BOMA, or the Billing Ovulation Method Association. The Creighton model, which is pretty similar to the sympto-thermal model, it just has a different name, etc. They are all similar, but slightly different. And the one that I was taught was BOMA, but that's kind of inconsequential to the conversation. All this to say that it at least here in the Diocese of Phoenix is part of the marriage prep, and that's how I got introduced to it. And my wife and I have been practicing NFP for almost 7 years. But why is it important? Well, it is important because this is the only method approved by the Catholic Church for achieving and postponing or avoiding pregnancy. And the use of natural family planning is considered morally acceptable versus artificial contraception. So basically, it is a good thing to use when a couple wants to avoid pregnancy or space kids in between pregnancies, or achieve pregnancy, I guess, more effectively.
Correct. So it's commonly known as, well, it's not commonly. I mean, it's a misconception that it has, that it's just to avoid pregnancy, but it's also super good at achieving it, like you said. So when people hear about NFP, don't just have that mentality, saying, okay, it's just like the Catholic version of contraception. No, it's actually super effective to get pregnant with it as well.
Right. And didn't you have stats of how effective it is?
Yeah. So NFP is more than 99% effective with 0 side effects.
That part is, I think.
That's crazy.
And couples that use it have a divorce rate of under 4%.
Wow.
Which is, again, very beneficial for the
incredible
couple.
Yeah, so let's talk about like um, the positives or the pros of natural family planning. So the the keeping the couples together, the divorce percentage amongst couples that practice it is super low, which I think, and this is just speaking from my personal experience, is that natural family planning really um, forces, I guess, that's kind of a strong word, but promotes communication between the husband and the wife, in that there has to be a constant
Monitoring.
monitoring in an open conversation about the fertility of the couple. So it is not just the wife who is in charge of the couple's fertility. It is a joint effort. It's not 50-50, it is 100 and 100.
Yeah.
So that openness, that vulnerability, it helps, I think, the couple grow in terms of how they talk to each other, and always having this in the forefront of their minds. If we want to be faithful, fruitful, free, and total, I think those are like the four adjectives of
marriage.
Yep. So free, both parties need to be free to make that decision, right? So
give each other freely, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. And NFP allows this to happen even more naturally. So
right.
Faithfully, well, that's how we ought to approach intimacy within the marriage. Because I didn't know this, and it was like kind of mind blowing that it is one of the only things that you can do outside of the sacraments within the marriage that provides grace to the couple.
That's interesting,
and it's unitive because it's meant to be an icon of the Holy Trinity, right? The love of the Father, the love that Jesus has to the Father. It's so big that it begets. It begets. Exactly. Thank you. That's the word that I was looking for. So the love of a wife for her husband and vice versa has the potential to create life. So that part is like kind of mind-boggling to me, that God allows us to be co-creators, and then be responsible for these little souls.
It doesn't stop there.
Right. That we get to, feed for 18 years until they fly off on their own.
Or 26 or 28 if you're Mexican.
Yeah, I was not going to go there because I was like 28 when I left my parents' house, but that's,
which is totally fine.
No shame in that.
No shame in that.
I came to a different country.
Well, it's part of Mexican culture too. It's pretty common in Mexico to have multi-generational homes, and I think that should be adopted a lot more here in the States, if you don't mind me saying. No,
you're allowed to say that.
Yeah, with like I think, without going on a tangent, but it's something to be said about growing up with different ages in the household. They bring different things to the
I feel like
equation.
That's how I grew up. Like I had, when we lived in Mexico, we lived in my grandma's house, and it's us, and then some of my cousins were there too, and then some of my uncles at some point. So it's like you just grow up with everyone.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. The parties were off the chain.
There's always something to do.
There's always something to do.
Yeah.
Tangent, sorry.
The communication aspect.
Coming
back. So there has to be this open line of communication. And I thought that this was very smart to, I heard my NFP instructor talk about her experience with her husband, because it was more like the husband asking, "Can we do it?" and it got to a point where she would answer like, "Yeah, we can. We can always do it." But the point is are we ready for the consequences of that?
Of the marital act.
The marital act, the renewal of vows.
Yes.
So that was kind of eye-opening. Like, yeah, a couple can be intimate whenever, technically speaking, minus a few days of every month. But the consequences of the act is what the communication needs to be about. Are we ready to have another baby? Do we want to space the babies out? Are we financially ready to welcome another life into the world? Are we mentally prepared for different, for another child in the family? All of these things need to be taken into consideration when, and it sounds super romantic, that talk about all these things with your wife when you're trying to be spontaneous and but regardless of that, it is a responsible thing to do.
And it's also helpful, I think for most men, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it, we're not too comfortable to get into those topics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's helpful to be on the same page with your spouse on this, and because that's also part of the intimacy. The intimacy doesn't just come, there's physical intimacy, and then there's like the emotional intimacy that that your bride has your back and you have her back no matter what. That's part of it, I think, part of that ongoing conversation. That only can be beneficial. It's not going to be detrimental to the marriage. It's only going to enhance that communication that furthermore. So
yeah, especially since, again, this might be a generalization, but for the most part, we as men are used to express our love by physical touch, signs of affection. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. But that are, part of the challenges of NFP is the periodic abstinence that is required when there are signs of fertility in the woman. So that plays into the dying to self to say, okay, I do want to show my affection in a physical way to my wife, but because we have been having this conversation that we are, trying to postpone or avoid pregnancy, then we have that little sacrifice or dying to self to say we are abstaining from this for a better, higher purpose. Ivan, help me out.
Yeah, so chastity is commonly misunderstood. Abstinence is the absence of the sexual act, and celibacy is a state of not being married. Chastity, a virtue that applies to our sexuality, and the function of chastity is to free a person to love. We all have the freedom to really practice this in our marriages, right? The way that we're going to love our spouses, the way that we're going to show that love to our children, like we always have to be free to do so. So
in those moments of waiting, it can be heroic.
Absolutely. With my wife and I with NFP, so I remember we were going through our NFP classes, and my wife and I kind of jumped the gun and we got pregnant before we were actually married. And so we had to stop doing the classes. And I remember personally for me, it was a time of, there was some shame that came with it. But at the same time, there was, an excitement of, I always saw myself as a father, and there was a time, I was excited to, man, I'm bringing a life here, but there was some shame that came with it. And we really had to come to terms with, well, like, we were engaged, and, I was afraid of losing my job. And at the time I was a youth minister, and, I talked to the priest, and I remember he was so loving. He was so, I thought that I was going to go in there and I was going to tell him, and it's like, get out, something like that.
Yeah.
But no, like, he like really looked me in the eyes, and he was like, that's beautiful. Like, congratulations. And yeah, he's like, I'm going to be praying for you, and I'm here to support you. And it was great to see that. And at that, I remember that was kind of like almost like a weight lifted off my shoulders. And, we're still learning NFP. We're still trying to get better at it. And yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing process, but it's beautiful,
I think there is a misconception. Like, you see big families and you're like, well, NFP doesn't work because they have 8 children, or it's like the running joke.
I'm looking at you, Grandma. I'm just kidding.
Sensitive much? I know. But you see, at least at St. Joan of Arc, we see families that have 6, 7, 8 children. So it begs the question, like, is NFP effective? Effective for what? Like you said, it is 99% effective probably for both.
Correct.
For conception and avoidance of pregnancy. So if I guess it's coming back to my instructors, like, it's effective if you use it right.
Correct.
And to your point, Ivan, I think that I don't think you ever stop learning NFP, which is, I guess it could fall under like the challenges. Because, we get older and
the body changes,
hormones change. The one thing that is a really big challenge for us as a couple is postpartum. The time that it takes for Deanna to get back to a normalcy, to a normal cycle, it's very difficult because we are living like brother and sister for a while, right?
That's been hard for me as well.
I mean, I don't think it's easy for anybody.
Yeah, I don't think it's uncommon.
If you're flesh and bone,
and you love your spouse,
absolutely.
Right?
But that's where the heroics come into play. So what do you do to alleviate that? You start a podcast.
Absolutely.
No,
this is why we're here, guys.
Yeah, and I think it's also important. Like you were stating, Ivan, the differences between abstinence and celibacy and chastity. And again, being chaste while being married, that's like a good thing. We should always be chaste. That shows our spouses that how much we love them and care for them, and we're willing to die for them, and dying for them in that sense too. Getting rid of our own need at that moment for the betterment of the couple itself. And this is like the devil's strategy has not changed. He always attacks when a man and a woman are isolated from one another, and driving a wedge between them, the wedge of lust. So, men, we have to be vigilant.
Yeah.
Because that's when all these
doesn't become lust.
That's when all these unnecessary things are then thrown at you. And I feel like it's especially for guys. I mean, I'm sure women struggle with this as well, but I think it's especially for guys. Like, when you don't want to practice chastity, whether because you're postpartum or whatever the thing may be.
It could be like health issues.
Or mental or like emotional.
Yeah, all these things is that that's when the devil attacks the most. And that's when, you get those temptations of, watching pornography and things like that. And it sucks,
Yeah. Yeah, because you become isolated and again, us as men, we seem to think that that's how we display our manliness to our wife.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
No, there's a whole slew of ways that you can be manly to your wife, you know?
I think that acts of service. We were talking about. I think we had talked amongst ourselves about the love languages.
The 5 love languages.
But yeah, acts of service is always going to be one that is it's your get out of jail card guarantee that your wife's going to love you if you pick up 2-3 extra chores around the house.
Mhm.
If you take the bath time for the kids or empty the dishwasher, all those little things that romance changes as you
Mhm.
spend more time in a marriage. It's just gonna look different than when you're dating.
Correct.
Speaking about the point that you just made about how to prepare ourselves for those times that we're going to need to practice periodic abstinence. One of the things that has helped me personally has been fasting.
Mhm.
I think that practicing intermittent fasting, for health reasons and for spiritual reasons, and I think we talked about fasting in one of the episodes that we did for Lent
Mhm.
a while ago. We'll link to that in the show notes. But that saying no to food, which is inherently good and needed for our nourishment, and feeling that physical hunger and leaning on God for that kind of consolation of removing the pleasure of eating
Mhm.
from your day to day
Mm.
helps when you have to say no to things like intimacy with your wife. It
Mhm.
prepares your soul for those kind of attacks from the enemy when you have that temptation,
Yeah.
whether it is pornography or what
Mhm.
have you.
Well, it's a good practice of temperance.
Temperance,
as
thank
we
you.
spoke in the fasting episode, it's about being
Self-control.
being the master of your passions, essentially. And the passions are inherently bad, but they can become bad if they're not kept in check.
Mm-hmm,
And that can happen within the marriage too, because at a certain point, if a man is not on the same page with the woman, it can easily become distorted,
yeah.
at least for one of them, right?
Mm.
So, what else can we tell you about NFP?
Can you say who you learned NFP from?
Yeah. My teacher was Armida Escarcega, who happens to be the coordinator of natural family planning at the Diocese of Phoenix now, which she has been teaching NFP for, I don't know, 15, 20 years.
I have a story about her daughter.
Which one?
The youngest one, Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to be her youth minister, and she loved to brag that she was the perfect child because she was conceived
Using NFP.
and using NFP.
That's right.
And
She
none
does
of her
brag
other
about it.
none of her other siblings were conceived that way. So she loves to brag like I was the perfect baby. She walks around anytime it's like about like marriages or whatever, she'd be like, I was a perfect baby.
It's an NFP baby.
Yeah. I'm like, whatever, Caro.
Whatever, Connor. You're like the 5th of 5. But yeah. And did we talk about charting? Didn't talk about
We
charting.
didn't. No. You want to touch on it real quick?
Yeah. So the one advice that I would have to the guys listening would be the one responsible, take ownership of charting. Why? Because it's going to make your life easier, basically. So you don't have to get fancy. You can use apps if you want, if that's your thing. I used to have Excel spreadsheet because I'm a nerd. But pen and paper will do. There are some templates that you can download from the internet, but basically I'm oversimplifying, but what the couple will do is just count. Usually, I didn't, and by the way, I'm just going to preface all this by saying that I didn't expect to know so much about fertility as I know today. But usually, a woman's fertility cycle will be from 28 to 30 some odd days. So take into consideration that males are always fertile. We are always fertile. And women have a window of fertility of like maybe 5 days. And by observation of the presence of mucus in the cervix, a couple can record that in a chart and know whether it is a day that shows signs of infertility or fertility.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically your go-to. And there are several rules around like the days previous, like after the menstrual cycle ends and before the ovulation cycle begins, that the couple are free to have intimacy if they decide to do so. Free, faithful, fruitful, total. And then depending on whether a pregnancy wants to be achieved or postponed or avoided during the period of fertility is when the advantage of running the chart as a man will come into the picture, because you will already know if you're going on a trend towards more fertility. You don't even have to ask if it's a possibility to renew your marriage vows, because depending on what you are trying to achieve, right? Well, at least in my personal experience, it's like, okay, I'm not even going to bring it up in the conversation because it's not
it's a no-fly zone.
No-fly zone. Thank you. That is a very good way.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to get something out of this whole podcast, is that there's a no-fly zone.
There's a no-fly
That's
zone,
what you
baby.
gotta
And
remember, the no-fly zone.
Uh-huh.
on the days that there are no signs of fertility and it is a fly zone, that's when you empty the dishwasher and
Get the
put
roses.
the kids to bed. You cook dinner, you set the mood. It's like acts of service.
You wash those dishes in a tank top, showing off your muscle. Hey, baby.
Right, exactly. Yeah, why not? Note to self, buy a tank top.
Note to self, don't buy a tank top.
It's going to look like I have a sweater under that tank top. It's so weird. It's such a weird style. Sorry for that visual, guys. I'm sorry for everyone.
We could have edited this out, but we didn't. Because that's how we are.
Welcome.
That's how we roll.
No, you're saying like
deal with it.
It's good. We're gonna keep it in because I edit the episode.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't.
When it's something that I don't want to be heard, I edit it out.
That's AJ said that. AJ from Uncle Do, shout out. It's like, no, I think that makes me sound smart, so I'm not gonna edit it out because he does the editing of that podcast. So. Anyways, any closing comments about NFP that we didn't?
I mean, I think it's a, like we said, like it's we always have to learn. I know that this is something that I need to get better at. Because I mean, I want to do it with my wife. I want to help her, and I want to get better at tracking because I'm not very good at it. So if it's something that I need to learn is how to track, and I feel like I need to go to Walter more because I feel like he has it down. I need a copy of your Excel spreadsheet.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I can get you a template.
Mm-hmm.
But
that's another disclaimer. We are not physicians.
Yes.
Please go to your diocese appointed natural family planning person. If you're in the Diocese of Phoenix, we already told you the name of who you should go to. We'll leave some links in the show notes for the Office of Natural Family Planning of the Diocese of Phoenix, at least, and some of the other methods that you can do. But also, Well, I guess if any women are listening to this and they want to do NFP or are interested in it, I guess ask your OBGYN, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we are not experts. We are just sharing our personal experience.
I think that's been stated.
Yeah, I think you know that, right, guys? Yeah.
We're just trying to do our best with our own experiences,
what we
have to work with. But no, seriously, I think it's the conversation of the couple. I think for me, it's the takeaway point of this episode, right? There are many ways to communicate with your spouse, and this is just one of them. And it's a pretty important one, because we want to make sure that our spouses feel loved, feel supported, that they don't have like the weight of the world on their shoulders when it comes to the intimacy of the couple. And we need to step up as men, in this case, educate ourselves, find resources like this great podcast, yours truly. And yeah, like Walter said, reach out to your diocese to find out more. If you're like in marriage prep, it's a really good time to talk to some other men to get more comfortable around around the whole topic, to be able to just be open and honest about it, with your spouse. It's like I said, it's going to be beneficial, never detrimental. It's always going to be good. It's a
positive thing.
It's a really positive thing. So.
And with that, we want to thank you for listening to this episode of Barbatus Catholic Podcast, the show where three Mexican dads talk about faith, life, and culture. If you like the show, please consider subscribing to the podcast, sharing it on social media, leaving a rate and review on Apple Podcast, and recommending it to your friends and family. And if you didn't like it, well, just keep it to yourself and let others make their own mistakes. Also, like and subscribe in YouTube. We are at Barbatus Catholic Podcast in there. Just something new that we have there.
It's just an audio version for now.
Audio version, yeah. But you cannot see our beautiful faces yet. But you can follow us on Instagram, where we every now and then post pictures of our handsome faces at Barbatus Catholic Podcast. And email us with your questions about NFP or prayer requests. You can reach us out at hello@Barbatus Catholic Podcast. And on the web, we are at Barbatus Catholic Podcast, barbatuscatholicpodcast.com, where you will find the show notes for this episode and more. And bless us, Casey.
Pray for us.
Until the next time.